We love signs. We love when the universe, when source, when our spirit team gives us a guide to say, hey, this is the direction you should go in. This is what you should be looking for. Pay attention to this, pay attention to this. Now today, I want to give you a real life example of something that I just went through that not only speaks to how beautiful it is to walk an intuitive path, but it also talks about how signs can be seen as not always the end point, but sometimes just a directional point to say, keep going. You're going in the right direction. I'm excited about today's session because I want to talk about a few things in this one session. I want to talk about the power of being connected and having a direct source. I want to talk about being supported in things that can sometimes be difficult on our path. And I also want to talk about how signs can sometimes mean you're going in the right direction, but maybe a sign isn't the exact answer. Using signs in a way that can guide you to the perfect answer, to the perfect end point that you've been looking for. Now, I'm going to share this through personal experience, and I'm going to be very direct with you. It's going to be a little tough for me to get through the first part of this just because it kind of hits home and it's kind of like all squishied up on there in my heart. So let's just rip off this Band-Aid. The experience I want to talk about today that's got so many good examples in it on what happens when you are being a conscious creator, when you're on your path, when you're, following your intuition, tapping in every day, checking into your energetic body, doing GCP, all of those things. The experience I want to share with you today is the passing of my dog, Sadie. Happened recently and a little hard to talk about still. It's been 2 months, but if you have a fur baby or a feather baby or a scaled, I don't care what's on the outside of that little adorable being that loves you unconditionally, you know what I'm talking about. It takes a little while to get past it. Now, Sadie was adopted as a senior. I adopted her when she was 13 and she lived to 19 years old. So she was a trooper. Okay, just got to get through that part. So it was time for Sadie to go. I got the signs, I got the messages, and I want to tell you the story to kind of give you an example of, again, what it's like to live intuitively. And that's my passion, to help people be able to live intuitively. So Sadie had the signs that time was, getting closer, and I did my standard, I'm not going to talk about it for a while. And then I remember it was a Wednesday. And I said, I think we might be at that point. I think we might be at that point. It's a very hard decision to make. I called a good friend of mine who is an animal communicator, and I'm trying hard to talk about animals passing sometimes, but I called my friend and we had a beautiful conversation. She was amazing. She's extremely ethical. And this is why I love her so much, because she doesn't tell you what to do. She just tells you what's coming through, which is a very ethical approach to animal communication and trying to make a decision such as this one. But I called her, I talked to her. I felt very confident about this. Now, little tiny backstory. A couple weeks before this event happened, we got another dog. And this dog, beautiful girl, she's 3 years old. Her name is Millie. She's a shepherd mix. She's super sensitive, super sweet, and she loves her toys. They are like her babies. So she's just a dear, 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 dear soul. And we had started bringing her to a place nearby that does doggy daycare. And she had befriended a standard size poodle that had, kid you not, a mullet. And I will say a banging mullet too. Like, this dog, wonderful, right? But this was the one dog that Millie, got kind of close to. This will come in later in the story. So it's now Thursday morning, and I woke up and my partner had taken Millie to daycare. And so they had just left to go bring Millie to daycare. And I came in the office where Sadie always is. My office is her safe space. I don't know if it's the blue walls or I don't know if it's just the delicious energy of the work that I do, but that's where she was 24/7. And I came in to see her and she was sleepy. She was still there, but in front of her was some of Millie's toys. Now again, Millie is really possessive of these toys. So I thought, uh-oh. Ooh, okay, this felt like a sign to me. Like Millie was saying, it's time to goodbye. And, they connected. So I made the call. I made the call to the vet and said, okay, we're ready. And the vet said, well, I can get out there, but I can't get out there until tomorrow morning. Is she okay? I said, yes, she's okay. I'll keep an eye on her through the night. We'll be all right. She said, I'll see you tomorrow morning. The service said the vet will be there tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So I went to bed that night and I was crying. I was sobbing. I was a wreck. I'm not going to lie. Sadie, I used to nickname her as my office manager. She was with me 24/7. She helped me launch everything online. She was right by my side through everything. So this was a really, really tough thing. So I went to bed. And I went to bed and I cried myself to sleep. I did. I was dreading the next morning, cried myself to sleep, and I didn't pay attention energetically to the house because I was in a very human moment. This happens to a lot of us when we have a very heavy or intense, either positive intense or negative intense human moment. We can kind of let go of our spiritual awareness temporarily. By the way, nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with this. We didn't come down here to be spiritual 24/7. We came down here to have a human existence as well. So I'm very human. Crying myself to sleep, woke up in the middle of the night. The cats, we also have 2 cats. They're running through the house, knocking stuff over. That was not like them. And then I'm half awake listening to this in the middle of the night, and then Millie starts to bark. Now, at this point, we've had Millie for a number of weeks, and she never barked at anything. This is not normal. She slept through the night. And it really startled me. So I got up and I did what I do, as a spiritual being, as a conscious creator, somebody that uses their intuition. I sat up and I snapped back into that and went, okay, I'm going to first listen for human noise and look at Millie, my beautiful shepherd mix, to say, we good? And Millie looked at me like, we're good. And then the next thing I did was I took a deep breath and just felt the house and just sort of scanned the house. There was chaotic energy throughout. Something was happening. And I instantly went, this is Sadie. This is what's happening. So I ran and went and checked on Sadie. She was fine. And I'm looking around, and I did see a guide that I had never seen before. And I said, what are you doing? And do you belong here? And the answer was, yes, I'm here. I'm here for Sadie. I was like, okay, crying again. But I did GCP on myself, I did GCP on Sadie, and then I did GCP around my entire house and just said, hold us in light and as we go to sleep here and get us through to the morning. Now, if you're not familiar with GCP, it's a practice, Ground Clear Protect practice. I'll put a link in here or look for a link. There's a link in the top 5 intuitive tools course, which is a free course. It's a big course. It's a great course. If you wanted to start your intuition or take on a couple of tools to expand your intuition even further, that's the course to take. And it's completely free. So you can look for that as well. But GCP is in that course too. If you do one thing, it's GCP. I know I say that all the time, but it is really, really cool. So I did GCP on the entire house. And it was calming, but you could still feel that there was some activity. So we woke up the next morning and I'm preparing for this. Sadie at this point didn't like to be touched. She didn't like to be moved a lot. And so I was trying to, find a way to give her some peanut butter, some cheese, things like this. And out the kitchen window were 6 deer. We have mule deer. And they were giant. They were right outside the window. And it was like, good morning and thank you. And I instantly had this feeling of thank you. It was just this overwhelming feeling of gratitude. And I said to my guides, again, I had said this to them in the middle of the night when I was doing GCP as well. I said to my guides, please, can you continue to give me signs that I know I'm doing the right thing? Because this is a very hard decision to let go of one of your fur kiddos, right? And so I asked for the signs. 6 giant deer right outside the kitchen window. That was odd. That's never happened before. We've been here a little over a year. And I said, thank you, gratitude. And then I went and sat with Sadie for a little while, and the vet showed up. And the vet had tattoos on one of her arms, the flower of life. And I went, whew, okay, this is wonderful. That's a beautiful tattoo. That means she's in sync spiritually. And so we're kind of in that same groove, right? She didn't need to have, tattoos or anything to be a wonderful, kind woman, which she was. But for some reason, that tattoo just gave me warmth, like another little sign. I said, okay, awesome, thank you. So she came in. She was hands down one of the most compassionate, amazing vets. I have adopted senior dogs for a long time and worked with a lot of amazing people. I've actually never had a bad experience when it comes to the transition process. But this woman was powerfully wonderful and kind. So she's here and we're chatting and we're taking this very slow to make sure Sadie's as comfortable as possible. And we start talking and I said, oh yeah, well, we have the other dog, but she's in the bedroom. We want to just sort of give Sadie this sort of peaceful moment. And when the time's right, we'll bring Millie out here to say her goodbyes as well. And I said, yeah, I knew the timing was right because Millie had given Sadie a couple of toys. And I was telling this to the vet. Millie had given Sadie a couple of toys before she left for daycare down at XYZ daycare. And the vet said, hey, that's where I bring my boy. He loves it there. He was just there for like 3 or 4 days while I was on a retreat to a spiritual function. And I was like, well, that's really cool. Which dog is yours? Because there's only like 7 or 8 dogs that go. And she said, it's the standard poodle. She said, the one with the mullet. And I went, really? Like, that's Millie's buddy. And we were like, yes. So we started talking about science and we started talking about synchronicities and, just the meaning of things in life. And it was really powerful and it was very wonderful. Between the guide showing up in the middle of the night, the mule deer, 6 giant deer right out front of the window, peacefully standing there, this incredible vet coming who happens to be the mom of the friend of my new dog, all of it just lined up and said, you're good. You're okay. This is all right. This is good. So Sadie passed very comfortably, very peacefully. It was a very good passing. We were able to escort her out and put her in the vet's car. And go through the standard process. But fast forward about a month, this is where we're going to get into signs that are directional and not necessarily landing on something. Fast forward about a month, I started thinking, okay, is it time to open up the house for another fur kiddo, right? Maybe there's another senior dog out there that could use a home. Is it time? Am I ready? And I was like, I don't think so. And I told a friend, I said, I just don't think I can do it. I have all these reasons. I'm just going to let it go. I'm just going to let it go. And I said to my guides, give me a sign to let me know when it's time to look again. And a couple days later, there was a message that came through about a shelter in Denver. And I looked up this shelter. And of course I did. Of course, are you surprised? I looked up the shelter and there was a dog available for adoption. And this dog's name was Apple. Now, the dog that started all of this for me was a Cocker Spaniel that was 6 years old that I rescued 15 years ago. It's a long time ago. And she was my heart dog. She was my heart dog. And I named her Apple. And it was kind of a weird name. I know. I know. And then like some famous person named their kid Apple like a year later, and everyone was like, oh, I get it now. It's like, cool. All right. So anyway, it's not a common name for a dog. And here's a dog in Denver, Colorado, which is drivable for me, in Denver, Colorado, where I was at the time. And I'm like, this is this a sign? But then I looked and it was a 5-month-old puppy. And my first thought was, I don't have the time that this puppy needs, right? I wouldn't do this puppy, I wouldn't do right by the puppy because I wouldn't be able to give her all of the time that she needs for development. And I was like, well, that's odd, because why would I get the sign Apple? And I sat with my guides again. They said it's just a sign to start looking. And I said, got it. This is what I mean by a sign that's just, hey, keep going. Sometimes we ask for signs that are the answer. Tell us the direction, tell us the person, tell us the job, give us a sign that this is it. And in our eagerness and our impatience, I don't know if you can relate to that. I can. But in that urgency that we sometimes have to get what we want and what we're looking for, we will actually decide that the sign that's in front of us is the answer. I got to go. I have to adopt this dog, Apple. Well, yes, it's a puppy. And yes, I don't have the time needed for a puppy. And yes, it's not the best for a puppy for someone who doesn't have all the time for a puppy, but I'm going to go get the dog because it's a final. This is where I would invite you to, when you get a sign, step back, invite you to step back and go, is this the answer? Or is this a keep going sign? Is this a pay attention? Is this one of those signs, someone said it really well, a road sign on the freeway saying, keep going this direction. Got it. Your destination is up ahead. That type of a sign. So sit with it and say, is it a finale? Is this the dog? Or is this a sign telling me, keep your eye up, keep going. Your destination is up ahead. These two different approaches for signs, not even different approaches, these two different signs are great. They expand your map. They expand your possibilities. You'll get more signs when you're open to signs that are simply guiding you forward, in addition to signs that are the answer, the end point. I'll give you one more before we wrap up. So I went to go see my nail tech. Love her. And we were talking about this, and I said, I didn't think I was ready. It's only been like a month or so, a little over a month. And then I saw a dog named Apple, but it was a puppy, and I knew it wasn't right for me. So it was just a sign to keep looking. I'm going to keep looking. And she was like, that's great. She says, I have a heart dog too. Her name is Persephone. And I was like, goddess of the underworld? That's awesome. I was like, yes, cool. So we just talked about this for a little bit. And then I went home and I thought, well, Denver's a long way away. So I'm going to just look at ones that are in my region, right? Pounds, shelters, humane societies that are near me. And the first one I looked at had a dog named Persephone. I was like, wait a minute. And this was the afternoon after I had gotten done talking to the nail tech. So again, I sat with it and said, is this the end goal? Is this the destination? Is Persephone the dog? Or is this a sign saying keep going or something of that nature? And I got a very distinct feeling, this is just a keep going sign. Also, it was a dog that wasn't really kind of in my groove as well. Another kind of dog that needed a lot more attention than I could give. And I need those more of the low key dogs. Everyone's a different dog person. No, it's no worries, right? But it wasn't a dog that fit, but the name fit. It happened in the same day. And so I went through yes and no intuition. This is where you say, okay, but well, how am I supposed to just ask? I'm just going to ask this and I'm just going to get an answer. This is what you're going to do. You're going to use yes and no intuition. And you're going to sit with it and say, is this an end point? Is this a destination? Is this the dog? Yes or no? You're going to sit with yes for a minute, see how it feels. You're going to sit with no for a minute, see how it feels. You're going to start to let yourself guide yourself through yes and no. Yes and no is so opposite that it is a fantastic tool that you should use with your intuition always and forever. Never stop using yes and no intuition. And so I was like, is this the dog? Nope, didn't feel like it was the dog. Is this a sign about the location of the shelter? And I got goosebumps from head to toe to say yes, yes. So at least now I know where I'm going to get my next dog. So when I feel that urge, I'll jump in there and see who's there and see if something that clicks. You know, I am a big believer too in the pull. If it's right, you'll feel a pull. If it's not right, you'll feel like you're trying to make it happen. You know, kind of like your intuition pulls you, your imagination, you push. So those three approaches really, really help when you're trying to make a decision and get to an end goal. Is this sign a direction saying you're in the right lane, you're going the right way? And then is this a sign that says this is your destination, you've landed, this is the one? Little bit of yes and no, and then listen to the pull. If you're curious about yes and no, jump into this video next. This is going to be a good one to get started on. And don't forget to look for that GCP link. It's a practice that once you start using it, you will never want to be without it.